All right, welcome back to our Lightroom Classic 3 tutorial session. The first part of this covered the spot removal tool. The second part will cover the adjustment brush. Adjustment brush, like the spot removal tool, works on just part of an image, so you can target, specify your changes. And the spot removal tool is a little bit like Lightroom, like Photoshop inside of Lightroom. So is the adjustment brush. It's pretty powerful, kind of cool, and it helps you, again, refine your images. So what I'm going to show you some examples of in the images that we're going to work on are refining attention. Just like we did with HSL, we did that with hue, saturation, and luminance, so color, richness of the color, and the brightness of the color. We're going to do that same thing, but now in just selected areas, in a sense. So let's turn the tool on and let's talk about it. So the adjustment brush it's in the tray of tools right below the histogram, and it's the tool on the far right. It's kind of looks, I guess, like a makeup brush. So once you click that tool, you'll expand the options underneath it, and there's a lot of them. This looks a lot, the top part anyway, looks like the basic panel. So just down below here, there's the basic panel. We've got a lot of the same stuff up here in the adjustment brush. So what this basically means is we can paint with controls in the basic panel. So we've got white balance controls, we've got exposure and tone controls, we've got the presence controls. You'll see there's hue, which, so we can paint with color. We've also got a couple other things we can do down there. Well, this sharpness, noise, moire, and defringe I hardly ever use, but yeah, basically up here is when I work. So let's talk about this photo. Let's talk about what I hope to accomplish, and why I'm going to use the adjustment brush for this. So I've edited this image the way I want it to be, and now I've made my global edits, the edits to the entire photo. Now I want to get selective to help shape attention. So the subject of this photo is the light that's shining on that wood piece in that archway. Okay, that light, and I really want to emphasize that. And it gets a little lost because the archway that's above it, the stone arch, is also pretty bright. So what I want to do is darken that. I just want to darken that stone arch and pull attention away from it, so you really see the spotlight of light on the wooden elements there, okay? So I have the adjustment brush turned on. Step number one, anytime you come to the adjustment brush, step number one, always do this. My encouragement to you is to always do this, is to click twice on the word effect up near the top. The reason for that is when I double click the word effect is it resets all those controls, and there's about 10 or 12 of them, back to zero. So sometimes if you move a whole bunch of these, it's easy to forget one, and usually what you did on one photo you don't want to do on another, so reset is the best place to be. I want to scroll down and show you the brush controls, which are below those editing tools. So the brush controls, here's what I've got. I've got 4 of them. I've got the size of the brush, which just works the same way as spot removal. So I can make the brush bigger or smaller, the wheel on my mouse. And then I have the feather, which is the softness of the edge of the brush. That's denoted by that outer circle that's just a little lighter. Just like spot removal, I leave that at around 50. The flow is how fast as you're brushing does your brush happen. So like when you're spray painting, you can just kind of lightly tap the spray brush, or you can, the flow is like that. So if you're doing a subtle edit, and I use Lightroom for retouching portraits, so sometimes when I'm doing edits on faces, I might turn the flow down. So when it's at 100, it means it's coming out full strength all the time. When it's lower than that, it means it's not full strength. So for this, though, I'm going to leave it at 100. The density, which is how much it covers up what was underneath, that is similar. If I'm being subtle, maybe on faces, I just want to hide something but not completely remove it, I would turn the density down. Here, I want to completely cover, so I'm going to leave the density at 100. So what size brush do I use? Well, good question. I have a large area to cover, basically all this stone, so I'm going to have a pretty big brush. Okay. Also, I've got this edge here that I want to watch. See this edge of the arch where it meets the darker background? And I want to be a little careful there. So there's a tool inside of the brush tool to help me, because I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried painting with a mouse, it's not very precise sometimes. It's hard to do these curves, at least for me, on a mouse versus if I was drawing it. So there's a tool for that, and it's called the Auto Mask tool. So I'm going to turn that on for when I first start, and I'm going to start with the detail work. I encourage students, as you're working with this tool, to think of, remember back in kindergarten when you were in coloring class and how you were taught a strategy for coloring. And that was you go slow and take your time around the edges, maybe use a small brush. And then when you're in the middle area that you've got to cover, you can use the flat edge of the crayon, so you can just brush, crayon, color. Same idea here. Pretend you're 5. So I'm going to turn Auto Mask on. What I want to do in general is darken this. So I'm just going to start with exposure. I recommend when you first paint an area, just start with the control that you want to change the most and exaggerate it a little bit. Because you're going to need the exaggeration to help you see that you've painted everywhere. So for example, I'm using exposure, and I'm at about -1.5. I'm going to go -1.5. I don't think I'll need that much a reduction, but to help me see where I'm painting, this will help me see that. So I have the spot remove. Sorry, wrong brush. I have Auto Mask on. So watch this. So as I'm working on the edge here, you can see that my mouse is not, the brush itself is covering some of the darker shadow area, but it's not brushing there. That's the Auto Mask at work. So I'm just going to go along this. You can see everything else is getting darker where I'm brushing. Darker. So as long as you keep that plus sign, which is the center of the brush, away from that edge, it will not. It'll respect the edge, I guess. It'll respect the edge. So I've done the edges here, and here's why I don't leave. So what I'm going to do next is turn Auto Mask off. Because if I try and leave it on here, especially when I get to some of these areas with more contrast, it won't cover completely. So I'm going to first turn on Auto Mask. Then I'm going to make my brush bigger, and now I'm just going to finish the painting of the stone work. Okay, so I'm painting with -1.5 exposure. I'm making all of this darker. Okay, so I'll kind of stop talking for a second. So go ahead and do that. Maybe pause the video here while you're painting. And I've been painting with a mouse for a long time, so I'm decently fast at it. When you first start, it's kind of hard. All right, so pause the video until you get all that painted. All right, now unpause the video. Well, when you're done, well, you've unpaused the video. That's why it's playing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is fine tune this to get the overall effect that I want. So the exposure of -1.5 is too dark. It's too drastic a change. So I'm going to go maybe to about -1. Now I've still got some bright highlights on the middle top of the arch, that stone arch. So I'm going to try the highlights, pull that down, and the whites. You don't want to go too much because then it comes that gray smudge I was talking about. But I just want to knock it down a little bit. So my exposure's at about -0.93. My highlights are -21, and my whites are at -16. If I pull the shadows down, it's not doing a lot, but I kind of like that. So I'll go about -70 on the shadows. Now again, remember, the only thing that should be changing is this archway. It shouldn't change in here because I'm just affecting the area I painted. And if you want to see the area you painted, you could put your mouse over the pin. There's a dot that Lightroom places where you first started, when you first brushed. And in red, it will show you where you brushed. And you can see I missed a couple places where there's red where I don't want it. So I'll come back and erase that in a second. But you do want to make sure you filled in everywhere. If you want to, when you're first painting, especially a big area like this, you can turn that overlay on the whole time. And the way you do that is down here, just below the photo in the bar right below that, there's Show Selected Mask Overlay. If you turn that on, you will see where it's painted in red the whole time. So like for now, I'm going to leave it on. You can just hit the letter O, Overlay. So I want to get rid of these mistakes I made. So here's how to do that. Below the controls, I'm going to go to the Erase tool. The Erase tool. Click on that. Now the brush is working as an eraser, so it's taking away instead of adding. So I'll go over here, and I'm going to turn Auto Mask back on so I can get those edges nice and tight. And brush where in the shadow area here, where I don't want it to get any darker than it already was. So I'm just taking a moment, fixing those edges of mistake. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll actually paint with Auto Mask off, and if I do have little goofs like that, erase it, because the brush sometimes works a little faster. That's my preferred way of working. Anyway, turn the overlay back off so I can see where I'm working. Another thing I've noticed is, and I don't mind it, is this this archway, the stone arches is a little blue. So maybe I'll just make it a little more blue because that's kind of complementary to the orange. I don't want to go to that. That's too much. But just a little nudge to cooler will help the wooden parts feel warmer. So I'm creating some more contrast. -23, that's a little too much. Probably about -10. Yeah, there we go. So before, after. So now that middle part feels more focused. That wood with the light on it is now the center of attention. Now it feels a little dark. So I'm going to take my exposure and go a little brighter on the area I painted. So instead of 0.93 negative, I'm at -0.5. When you're done with the tool, click the Done button. If you want to come back into the tool and say, oh, I come back to it a second day and like, I feel differently now. So you would turn the brush tool back on, click on it to activate. And now when you come into the photo, what you're going to do is look for the pin, the little gray dot where you painted, where you first clicked when you painted. And I try and do those in the corner so they're easy to find. I mistakenly did this one down here, so it's a little hard to find. It's kind of hiding. When it's gray, it means it's inactive. Nothing will change. When I click on it, now it's got a black center. Now it means that is the active brushed area. And now I can make changes. I can make it crazy bright, make it darker, even silly dark. You get the idea. Okay? So you can change your mind on a brush that you've edited, just like you can change your mind on any other edit in Lightroom. All right, let's go to the next one, which is kind of similar idea. But this one I'm going to paint in both places. I'm going to paint inside the arch and outside the arch. The inside is the hero again. I want to really accentuate that. So I want to show you how you can paint with 2 brushes. You can paint with as many brushes as you want. So we'll start with the outside. We'll simplify that first. We're going to make it darker just like we did before. So I have my brush tool turned on. And again, double click the word effect before I do anything else. That just resets everything. Now I'm going to go just with exposure, just like I did last time. and go -1.5-ish. I'm going to leave auto mask off just because it'll help speed up. And I'm just going to paint on the outer stone part of the arch. So I'm just going to go as quick as I can. I may edit out all the little moments of this. Feel free to pause the video as you're painting this part. And then to come back in, cover the in part of the arch. And get that little bit. And feel free to change your mouse size as you work on areas of different size of detail. So I went a little smaller as I'm now inside the arch. And this little bit here. Let's see how I did with covering. Hey, not bad. I'm going to just erase this part right there, just a little bit. A little bit right there. So I changed the brush to the erase tool to get rid of that right there. All right, so that's good. Going to turn the overlay off. I just hit the O key to turn it off. You can also turn it off and on right there. So let's see. I'm going to leave that for now because my next decision of how I want to change that maybe more will be based on how the middle part looks. So I want to paint in the middle. Now, here's what you need to be aware of. This works differently than the spot removal brush, where on the spot removal, anytime I clicked, it created a new brush. If I click now, so I'm gonna just make a really big brush so you can see what I do. If I click now, oh, it's just adding to the area of that brush. That's not what I want. I'm gonna undo that. Command Z, Control Z on a PC. What I want is a new brush area. And the way you do that is up at the top of the brush control. It says mask, and then over on the right, new or edit. You're in edit mode when you're working on an existing brush. I want to be in new. So I'm going to click on new. And just like I did before, double click the word effect. This time what I want to do, my general thing I want to do in the middle is make it a little brighter. So for the metal part here, I want it to be brighter. So I'm going to go to the positive side of exposure. I'm also going to do some additional changes to both, but I want to get my baseline first. So about +1. Plus or -1 is a good place to start because it's enough that you can see where you're brushing and help you move along. You can always fine tune it. Hang on a second. I want to start in a place where it'll be easy to find the brush. So I'm going to start maybe like right here in the middle. So I'm going to click, that'll place the pin there. And then I'm going to brush. Again, I may edit this part out. So brush. And I'm going to go bigger brush because this is, you don't want to watch this for hours. Oh, maybe it's soothing. I don't know. So let's see how my overlay is doing for that. Just hit the O key again. You can see I missed over here. I covered some of the, I changed to erase and go a little larger. And just, I didn't mean to rebrush over that. And if you mistakenly erase too much, just switch back to the A brush over there, go a little smaller, and there you go. Sometimes you have to go back and forth a couple times. I'm going to click O to tap O to get back. All right, so now my middle's brighter. So let's see before and after just real quick. So we've basically inverted the lighting. What was light is dark, and what was dark is light. So the center here, I need more attention here. I need more stuff. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to increase texture in there. I'm going to increase clarity in there. Texture is up at about 40, clarity about 27. And I'm going to also turn up dehaze. We'll go to about +20. So that is, in a lot of different ways, kind of sharpening and pulling attention to there. Also going to turn up contrast in there. Pull down blacks a little bit. I know I brighten it, but I do want to pull that up. I'm going to increase highlights and whites. Let's see what I want to do with color. I'm going to go a little blue here. There's blue in the gate, the metal of the gate. So I'm going to take the temperature slider a little to the left. Again, that'll help contrasts with the warmer tones of the arch outside. Saturation, let's see, let's turn that up a little bit because it's kind of muted in color. So it's taking the saturation to about 15. Cool. So I've got the middle the way I like. I like it a lot. And so what I want to do is now fine tune the outer brush. So you'll notice the brush that I did for the middle, the metal part, is right in the middle, and it's got the black dot. It's active. There's a gray pin down here where I painted first the stone. So I'm going to click on that now instead, and now that brush is active. So now we've got just minus 1.63. What else do I want to do there? Maybe warm it up just a little bit more. It's kind of bland color, so I'm going to take the temperature to about plus 12 this time. Let's see what else. Maybe reduce contrast just a little bit. Basically kind of the opposite things I did, but just very subtly. Exposure is a little too dark out there at minus 1.6, so go minus 1.2. Let's see, do I want to do anything with saturation? Go just a little negative on saturation, about minus 20. So again, I'm kind of offsetting some of those things, moving the opposite direction I did on the middle, so that, again, helps pull attention there. So let's do before and after. Sure, let's do that. There we go. Before. So basically, we've reversed the lighting. What was light is dark, and what was dark is light. And that pulls wherever is brightest is going to get the most attention. And I wanted the most attention in this image to be on the middle part, the middle, versus the outside. Oops, sorry. So that's what it looked like before. Here's what it looks now. So adjustment brushes, I used 2 of them. On this one, I darkened the outer rock part. And then the inner metal part, I brightened up and added some color and some texture and things like that. I want to show you one more example of how to use this. It's a little more subtle, but I think it's still kind of cool. So again, it's for attention. I want to shape attention. Look at that red leaf with the water drops. And you will anyway. But what I want to do is subtly kind of add an extra spotlight almost to that with using the adjustment brush. So I'm also going to nudge it a little bit with HSL. So I'm going to start actually in HSL. And here's what I mean by that. Remember we did this, we shaped attention with those car photos, that car photo. And I did that by darkening certain colors and desaturating certain colors. So the red is the star here. So I'm down in HSL, and I can do this in HSL because the part that I want you to see is red, so it's a different color. And the only thing that has the green are the parts that I don't want you to see. So this is global in the whole photo. So I'm going to take the green luminance and we'll make it darker. And you'll see that there's some yellow going on here too, so I'm going to need to darken that a little bit too. So I'm going to go up to the yellow one and pull that down. How much? Just kind of eyeballing. Same thing with saturation. I'm going to go to the saturation, take the green saturation, and reduce that about minus 40, and the yellow by about the same amount. So I took the luminance on both. Well, I did a minus 40 for both luminance and saturation. Already, I'm seeing more of that red leaf, and I can increase the saturation on the red a little bit. Luminance, I mean, I don't want to do that. I mean, it's just saturation. Let's pump up the saturation just a little bit. Okay. Now, let's go to adjustment brush. So I'm going to turn the adjustment brush on, and I have my adjustment brush controls. Before we do that, you might be saying to yourself, Michael, look at these yellow twiggy things. Why aren't you removing those with the spot removal? I've tried. It doesn't work. Remember the limits of spot removal? It doesn't work. I've done it in Photoshop. I forgot to work on that image instead, but hey, it's a good example to show you certain limit. You would think this would be okay to work with spot removal because it's non-organic, but where it meets these edges is where it breaks down. Like right here would be hard. I don't have a shape exact to replace. That's a Photoshop thing when you got to do major surgery on your pixels. I'm going to leave it for now and call it good. All right, so I do want to paint on my red leaf. What am I going to paint with? I'm going to increase texture, clarity, and dehaze, turn those up so you're going to get more crunch on that leaf. Probably add some contrast. And I think that might be about it. So I'm going to reset my brush first, click Effect twice. I'm going to turn up clarity, texture about 30, clarity about 20, and dehaze about 10-ish. And I'm just going to start painting. Before I paint, though, actually, I'm going to turn on the overlay and turn on auto mask because there's some fine edges here I want to pay attention to. So I'm going to turn on the overlay so I can see, although it's red on red, so it's a little hard to see where I'm painting. Oh, I think I may have turned the overlay off. No, there's the overlay. It's there. Okay. So I'm painting, and going around the edges with auto mask turned on with a relatively small brush. Edges. Again, I'll probably maybe edit this part out unless you really enjoy watching someone paint with a mouse. Going smaller here to get this, although it's a blurry there, so I'm not going to really sharpen that. It's already blurry, you're not going to really sharpen it. Come up here, get through here, a little smaller, get that, and come back around here. So I've got the outer edges done. I'm going to turn auto mask off, do the inside, and make sure we cover everything. So cover the middle. You can see I missed a little bit up here. I was a little too excited up there and down here. All right, so I'm gonna turn the overlay off, and you can see the leaf is a lot more crunchy. Probably a little too much, so maybe turn clarity down just a little bit. Okay, so I'm really drawing attention here. While we're here, I'm going to show you something else you can do with the adjustment brush, and that is you can change colors. And this is new in Lightroom 9.3, I think, which is the version we're working on. You can change colors. So let's say you wanted a more fall leaf, a more golden leaf. I can do that. You can see where I missed. So this is another way to, if the overlay is the same color as the object you're painting, sometimes you need to change the color to help you see what you're doing. So I'm going to go back and finish this up real quick. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. So just a note about changing color. If you do a very drastic color change like I've done here, again, Lightroom probably isn't the best tool for it because you can see the edges are still the original color. So it's best if you do a relatively subtle color change or a color change that's kind of in the same family you started with. Like if I go to purple, not so good. Yeah. So you can change color. Let's say you want to, again, go maybe just a little more orange instead of the red that it was, or go a little more even richer red. I can do that with the hue control inside of the adjustment brush. So you can just nudge colors. If you ever wanted to change someone's eye color in a photo, this is how you can do it in Lightroom. I'm going to go back to 0. All right, so that's the adjustment brush. You have selective control on where you can make changes in the photo, and the most precise way to do that is with the adjustment brush. So these irregular shapes that we've worked on so far are good for brushing because you can draw those irregular shapes. And again, it's shaping attention. Sometimes it's corrective, sometimes it's creative. Mostly here was a creative choice to, again, pull attention from one thing to another, like I did here and here. I did these two with brightness, did this one with brightness a little bit, as well as color saturation, and then on the intended subject, I increased contrast and texture and clarity and those kind of controls that add detail to it, so you're going to pay more attention. So that's the adjustment brush inside Lightroom Classic. If you have questions, you know what to do. You're going to send me an email. You're going to swing by Zoom office hours. You're going to leave a note in the discussion on Canvas. I hope you're seeing all the different ways you can affect your photos and make changes. Invest a little time and energy. It's still not an hour or so per photo. Maybe it's instead of 2 minutes per photo, now you're spending 5 minutes per photo. So hope that helps. Do let me know if you have questions, and I will see you in the next video for class. Until then, stay well, stay healthy, wash your hands, wear a mask. Let's see, what else should you do? Eat a donut. Have a good one. Be safe. I'll see you in the next video.